Hello and welcome. I'm Master Lama Rasaji, and this is our Thursday edition of Rasaji Speaks. Actually, this is Holy Thursday to Christians and Catholics all over the world, and for other people who celebrate, paying homage to our older spiritual brother. Lama Seri sure appreciates it. What's our title for today? It's going to be good. The historical context of the crucifixion. The subtitle is Who Really Killed Jesus? Well, as we know, a lot of what's reported about the crucifixion is some of the most accurate, actually, information leading up to the crucifixion, from the Last Supper to Jesus in Mount Olives, praying and everything before he's arrested. Remember, he's not arrested by the Romans. A lot of people would think that the Romans should have got him, right? Because they were pretty much had all of Judea under martial law. I mean, they really did. It was amazing. You were called out at night at any times. Well, this was an age where they didn't ask you for your papers like in Nazi Germany, but they would question you to the nth degree. And a lot of times they would question you with a sword actually to your throat. That's right. And if they didn't like what you were saying, they were judge, jury, and executioner all in one. So you would think with that kind of power, or say abuse of power, that you would think that. No, but these were the soldiers of the Pharisees in the Sanhedrin, the political body of the Jewish faith that had been already politicizing that faith for a good 300 years. As you recall, one of the reasons that the mystic group, the Essenes, were formed was because they already were getting fed up about a decade or more, and they saw the synagogue going toward the dark side. They didn't want that. No, it wasn't every little synagogue. Actually, like a lot of things, the smaller synagogues in the village were very pious, very much pious, believed in the law of Moses, honored the law of Moses. Some even talked about the coming Messiah, but they did not have much influence. So the bigger synagogues were very much influenced by the Pharisees and the Sanhedrin. And in a lot of cases, what people don't understand, a rabbi, what they would call a deacon or a Jewish cantor, the singer, a lot of times in the bigger synagogues were Pharisees and part of the Sanhedrin. So the elders of the church that had been very pious in these bigger synagogues got together and said, you know what, we're gonna go to nature. We're gonna go by the Dead Sea. That's what we're going to do. 300 years later comes Christ. So 300 years of manipulation, 300 years of the infiltration of the dark side. They, like today, the people who will stay in power at all costs, became their focus. And they could not imagine, even though part of them wanted to believe, what would the Messiah do? And how would he influence our rule? It bothered them because they didn't want to give up the root. Just imagine for a second. You had Pilate, the puppet of the Roman Empire, that was there, that was being influenced by his wife, the centurion Cornelius, and papers from Rome with Caesar. Then you had Herod Sr. before Jesus was born. But now, toward the crucifixion, you had Herod Jr., who was an alcoholic, a whoremonger. He just wanted to party, party, party all the time, but he didn't want his throne taken. And then you had Antipas and Canopus, who were running the Sanhedrin. They didn't want to be, so all three didn't want to lose one hold over the Jewish people. They let John the Baptist slash Elijah, they tolerated him for the longest time until he got aggressive enough to go after Herod Jr. and Herod Jr.'s wife, because the Jewish righteous people saw it literally as an adulteration. You look at Jewish law, they saw it. This was the wife of Herod Jr.'s brother, the prince. Think about that, the prince, right? So he took the into his chamber, but he was more excited about her daughter, who was barely out of teenage years. So he was a sick cookie, a very, very sick cookie. So leading up to Jesus's death, when Judas goes back and forth to Antipas and begins to decide where they're going to find Jesus and do it, one of the sucker punches of Judas, and you're the betrayee and you're getting ready to be betrayed yourself. So they looked at him and manipulated Judas as a pawn in such a way to make him feel like they were literally going to give him a platform. They wasn't going to arrest him. They wasn't going to beat him. They wasn't going to flog him. They wasn't going to crucify him. They led Judas to believe, because you remember, Judas was of the Zealots. The Zealots wanted to overthrow the powers that be. That's right. They wanted to completely, conspiracy theory, they wanted to overthrow all the powers. To them, Jesus was supposed to declare kingdom in this world, kingship, monarchy. That's what they were praying for. They had enough hold on Judas from one side, and Antipas convinced Judas that he was going to give Jesus that platform. There wasn't going to be a trial. We were just going to hear him out. And Judas fell into the trap because Judas had seen him raise Lazarus from the dead. He had seen him heal the blind and heal the sick and cast out demons. Judas knew Jesus had some powers that he just didn't understand. And he said, this will be the time for Jesus. He fell right in the trap. So the betrayer got betrayed. And it was actually because of that he really committed suicide. Until this day, we're not sure. It's not clear whether Judas actually did. It's kind of out there, right? The Lamasery is very doubtful that he did. We feel like it was either somebody from the Sanhedrin that followed him once they had Jesus to make it look like a suicide, capture him, tie a noose around his neck, and pull him over the tree to make it look like, the Lamasery really felt that was also done by the Sanhedrin. So that's how nasty these people are. And then they bring Jesus to trial. They make a mockery of him. But in the beginning, Canopus is actually in the trial trying to make it look like he is going to do that. But Jesus is too clever, too aware, too consciousness, right? What really killed Jesus? Unconsciousness. Unconsciousness, that's the problem with unconsciousness. it can be used, and it can be used for its own format. Here's the law of the universe. You raise your conscious vibration, or you're a channel, a vehicle of the collective unconsciousness. This is one of the big reasons that the Buddha slash Bo Yang says the miracle is the change in consciousness. There was just so many people at that time that were in the order of the Sanhedrin and all the Pharisees, outside of Nicodemus and Joseph of Arimathea. They didn't want to hear anything this guy had because they felt he was a false prophet. Some even thought that he was of the devil. I mean, they really did. So to them, this was blasphemous. There was heresy. It was everything you think. The problem was they viewed the Christ that was in Jesus, right, as, that they just couldn't understand where he was coming from, who he was, and who he was not. And most of them, because of their ego and their lack of awareness, they were not privy, outside of Nicodemus and Joseph of Arimathea. They were dropping in on Jesus, listening, especially in the last year. But they closed their minds to everything outside of their rule. If you're not in their inner circle, you're not to be trusted, and you really don't have a say. So there was a pivot point in the trial where Canopus got downwind of the following of Nicodemus and Joseph of Arimathea, and he was whispered during the trial. That's what set Canopus off. They were thinking that maybe they would just take Jesus somewhere and they would just take him out of Judea, get rid of him. They didn't want blood on their hands. And that's why they decide that they're going to arrest him. But in order to do that, now Canopus turned the listening of a platform into judge, jury, and executioner. That's when they made the decision. They wanted to take him before Pilate because they really didn't want the blood on their hands. But they were the driving force of what killed Jesus. That was the driving force. And it was up to that moment that Nicodemus and Joseph really felt there could be a turning point, a way out. But fortunately, as I said earlier in the week or last week, that's why Joseph decided to form papers and of a decree that he would adopt Jesus as if Jesus was his child and allow the family to use his tomb for burial. That was the backup plan in case it went really bad. Well, it went really bad. And what people don't know from scripture, there was a part toward the end that it got really bad. Nicodemus could not hold his water, and he jumped up and started preaching and yelling. And what wasn't known, they actually had Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus removed from the trial so they would not go back and report what they were getting ready to do with Jesus. Fortunately for them, they had insight already. They were spiritually very moved by Jesus. Nicodemus first had been following Jesus almost the better part of 3 years. Joseph came in the second year because of Nicodemus. They were really close. And they were really just about the only open-minded people that were there. So that's what really set the whole thing up. And this, again, Lama G is sharing with you stuff that hardly anybody else knows. Baraka Bashai, may the blessings be to you and your glorious family. Have a wonderful Holy Thursday. Remember, tomorrow is Shangri-La Friday, but it's also Good Friday. In my opinion, it should be called Black Friday, but that's just my opinion. God bless you. Love you much. See you soon.